Hey, it's Darryl Syms, and in today's video, we're going to be doing some interactive ear training. So I'm going to start this video off by telling you some of the strategies in which I use when it comes to learning and transcribing music by ear. And then we're going to be using these strategies together for some ear training interactive exercises, which I'm going to share with you, which will progressively get a little bit more difficult. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a short phrase, and then you're going to pause the video, give yourself a moment to try and work that out, and then come back to me to check your answer. And then hopefully by the end of this video, you'll notice a slight improvement in at least your approach and your strategy when it comes to working something out by ear. So grab your guitar and let's stay focused. Now, the best tip that I can give you to help you play what you can hear on your guitar is to pre-hear the most appropriate scale and key relative to what you hear. So what I mean by that is if, for example, you hear a minor blues lick and you're positive it sounds like minor blues, that's the style that you're into, then before you attempt to transcribe this particular piece of music, you want to pre-hear perhaps the minor pentatonic scale and use that as your reference to help you find the notes of the minor blues lick. Obviously, it would be very inefficient for you to choose the major scale, perhaps. And you also, of course, want to choose the most appropriate key, which can be the hardest part. So what I recommend that you do when putting this into practice is to first thumble around on the top string to find the most appropriate root note that sounds like it could be the key. And then choose your scale. That could be the major scale, the minor scale, the pentatonic scale, whatever it is, whatever the closest vocabulary which you can hear is to the lick that you hear. And then use that as your template. Now the hardest part is to, once you've found your key, ideally you want to be able to pre-hear this scale or this vocabulary in your head. And the better that you can do that, the quicker and more efficient it will be for you when working this out. So a good little side exercise for you to try is to perhaps choose a key, choose a scale, and then play the first note of that scale, and then try to hum and play at the same time, and hopefully your voice and the actual note will match. If it doesn't, then the more you do this, obviously the more accurate you will become. Now that's exactly what we're going to put into practice throughout this video. I'm going to start off by keeping it super simple. I'll tell you the key and the scale which we're going to use, and that is the A minor pentatonic scale. So I recommend at this point that the first thing you do is play an A, which is the 5th fret on the E string, and then try to hum the pentatonic scale. And then once you think you've got pretty accurate, then play the pentatonic scale and compare what you've just hummed to what you can hear on your guitar. Okay, on to the next exercise. It's going to be a little bit more tricky because I'm going to play 4 bars in total. However, they are going to be almost identical besides one note. Here we go. Another top tip that might help you at this point is that after playing the video and hearing that phrase, make sure you pause the video and even just hum the melody, or just try and memorize it as best as you can before even attempting it on the guitar. Now let's go ahead and move on to exercise number 3, which is going to be a little bit quicker, and we're going to up the pace now to 8th notes. For this one, listen very carefully for the phrasing involved, since I'm not picking every single note. Okay, onwards to the next exercise. I'm going to start to introduce some more techniques now, so listen very carefully to how the notes are executed. Now, the most challenging part of that one might have been to listen out for the slides and the hammer-ons and the pick notes towards the end. And if you struggle with that, you'll find that you will get better and more accurate with this stuff as you listen and try and analyze more music. Now, with the next exercise, I'm going to start to introduce some outside notes. So what I mean by that is simply notes that do not exist within the minor pentatonic scale. So you're going to have to listen real carefully for those notes. And to help you locate them, you're going to want to choose in your mind the closest note that you can remember to that outside note. And then just listen again carefully to figure out, is it above or below the note which you remember from the scale? Now what we're going to do is change the key and scale in which we're going to play in. So we're no longer going to do A minor pentatonic, we're going to do D major. So the first thing you're going to want to do is play through the D major scale, get your ear and your brain prepared and ready to play some D major. So here we go, I'll run through the scale just to get your ear ready. And here we go with our first lick, keeping it super simple to begin with. Now, even though I played that same phrase twice, there was one note that was different the second time, actually unintentionally, oops, but hopefully you managed to notice that one before giving this one a try. Now let's move on to our next one. This time I'm going to start introducing some double stops. Now double stops are particularly tricky to hear because you're listening to two notes at the same time. But we'll start off real steady. I'll play 4 double stops in a row and do your best to try and figure out what they are. And as far as a strategy goes to this, obviously just make sure that you've mastered the major scale in your head and that you can pre-hear this. And then when listening to each of these double stops, you want to be able to, again, in your head, pull these notes apart and hear both pitches at the same time. So here we go, key of D, starting from here. Now you may have noticed that the first 2 maybe weren't too bad, but the last 2 were a little bit more tricky, and that's due to the nature of the guitar. The upper strings, especially when playing double stops, are going to be a lot thicker and more muddy to work out, which makes it even more challenging. But hey, that's part of the challenge. Let's try another one. I'm going to play 4 different double stops this time. I trust that that one proved to be at least a little bit challenging for you. I've got 2 more for you to try, and I'm not going to hold back with these. I'm going to actually choose a random key and a random scale at this point. So this might be challenging for you, and the way in which I recommend you approach this is that you play the video, play the phrase one at a time, pause the video, reflect on what you think the most appropriate scale would be or key. So take a moment just to fumble around with some notes, find a root note that sounds good. Once you've chosen a root note, try and determine in your head whether the scale might be major or minor, and then it's probably going to be either the major scale or the minor scale. In which case, once you've decided which scale would be most appropriate, run through the scale that you think has the closest sound to the phrase in which you're trying to learn. Get those notes in your head so that you can pre-hear them, and then go back and listen to the phrase again and just try and reflect on the pitches of these notes. Are they higher in the scale? Are they lower in the scale? And how accurate can you be at working this out? How efficiently can you do this? So you're trying to work this out in as little amount of moves as possible. So here we go. So there you have it. There was plenty of exercises for you to try throughout this video. Let me know in the comments below how far you got before it got really challenging. What was your threshold? At what point were the exercises becoming increasingly difficult for you to try? So I hope you enjoyed the exercises that I had to share with you. Feel free to give this another go in a week's time once you've kind of forgotten how to do all this. Or if you feel like this was easy enough, you can go ahead and implement these strategies when learning some of your favorite tunes or riffs or solos or whatever it is that you're trying to learn and perhaps transcribe. Best of luck with this. I will see you in the next video.